The cat's hind leg was broken. It lay helpless in a corner of the park waiting for the end. The morning mist hung heavy over Elmwood Park, clinging to the dew-laden grass and the ancient oak trees that lined the perimeter. A lone figure shuffled along the paved path, his breath puffing out in little white clouds in the crisp autumn air. This was Mr. Harold Peterson, a creature of habit, taking his daily constitutional as he had done for the past 20 years, rain or shine. Harold was a man of routine, his life a carefully orchestrated symphony of predictability. He woke at precisely 6:15, brewed a pot of Earl Grey tea, and settled down with the morning paper and a bowl of oatmeal. At 7:30 sharp, he donned his worn tweed jacket and ventured out for his walk, always the same route, always the same pace. Harold found comfort in this rhythm, a sense of order in a world that often seemed chaotic and unpredictable. This morning, however, the rhythm was disrupted. As Harold rounded the bend near the old bandstand, a flicker of movement caught his eye. A small, ginger cat lay huddled beneath a bush, its body strangely contorted. Harold, not a man easily swayed from his path, hesitated. He wasn't particularly fond of cats. Their aloofness and independent nature always struck him as somewhat arrogant. But there was something about the creature's stillness, its labored breathing, that tugged at his heartstrings. Cautiously, he approached, his footsteps crunching on the gravel. The cat lifted its head, its eyes wide with fear and pain. Harold's heart sank. The poor creature's hind leg was clearly broken, twisted at an unnatural angle. It lay helpless, whimpering softly, its fate uncertain. Harold felt a surge of pity, a wave of emotion that surprised him. He wasn't a sentimental man, not prone to displays of affection or empathy, but the sight of this injured, abandoned creature stirred something deep within him, a sense of compassion he hadn't felt in years. He knelt down, his old knees creaking in protest. There, he murmured, his voice rusty from disuse. It's all right, I'm here now. The cat flinched at his touch, its eyes darting nervously. Harold gently stroked its head, feeling the soft fur beneath his calloused fingers. He knew he couldn't leave it there to suffer alone. But what could he do? He was an old man, living alone in a small apartment. He had no experience with cats, no knowledge of how to care for them. Yet, as he looked into the cat's pleading eyes, he knew he couldn't turn away. He had to help somehow. This was no longer just a cat. It was a living creature in need, and Harold, for the first time in a long time, felt a sense of purpose, a responsibility to ease its suffering. Harold, a man who prided himself on his rationality, found himself in a quandary. His carefully ordered life, his predictable routine, was suddenly thrown into disarray by this injured creature. He looked around the park, hoping for a sign, a solution, perhaps another passerby who might be better equipped to handle the situation. But the park was deserted, the early morning mist keeping most people indoors. He considered his options. He could call animal control, but the thought of the cat ending up in a cold, impersonal shelter filled him with unease. He could try to find a local vet, but he had no means of transporting the injured animal. Besides, the vet would likely charge a hefty fee, and Harold, living on a modest pension, was not a man of means. He sighed, his breath forming a small cloud in the chilly air. He couldn't just leave the cat there, that much was certain. But taking it home, that was a whole other matter. His apartment was small, his life meticulously organized. A cat, especially an injured one, would disrupt the delicate balance he had so carefully cultivated over the years. Yet, as he looked at the creature huddled beneath the bush, its eyes filled with pain and fear, his heart melted. He couldn't abandon it, not when it was so clearly in need of help. He reached out, gently stroking the cat's head. It flinched at first, but then, as if sensing his kindness, it leaned into his touch, purring softly. Harold felt a lump forming in his throat. He had never been a particularly affectionate man, his life devoid of close relationships or emotional attachments. But this small, vulnerable creature had somehow managed to pierce through his defenses, awakening a long-dormant sense of compassion. With a sigh of resignation, he carefully scooped the cat into his arms. It was lighter than he expected, its bones fragile beneath its matted fur. He held it close, feeling the warmth of its body against his chest. The cat nuzzled against him, its purring growing louder. Harold stood up, his old joints protesting. He felt a strange mix of apprehension and excitement. He was taking on a responsibility, a burden he hadn't anticipated. But there was also a sense of purpose, a feeling that he was doing something meaningful, something that mattered. He started walking, his pace slower than usual, his mind racing with thoughts. He would need to find a vet, get the cat's leg treated. He would need to buy food, litter, all the things a cat required. His life, his routine, was about to change drastically. But as he looked down at the cat nestled in his arms, its eyes closed in peaceful slumber, he couldn't help but smile. Perhaps this unexpected disruption wasn't such a bad thing after all. Perhaps this little creature, this injured cat, had come into his life for a reason. Harold's apartment, a modest one-bedroom on the second floor of a quiet building, had always been a sanctuary of order and predictability. Every object had its place, every surface meticulously clean. The walls were adorned with framed prints of landscapes, the furniture arranged with geometric precision. It was a space that reflected Harold's personality. Neat, organized, and somewhat austere. The arrival of the cat, however, threw this carefully orchestrated balance into disarray. Harold, unsure of what to do with his unexpected guest, placed it gently on the sofa, the only piece of furniture he deemed soft enough for the injured creature. The cat, disoriented and in pain, looked around the unfamiliar surroundings with wide, apprehensive eyes. Harold, feeling a surge of inadequacy, rummaged through his cupboards, hoping to find something suitable to offer his new companion. He had no cat food, no milk, not even a saucer to pour it in. Finally, he settled on a small bowl of lukewarm water, which the cat lapped up gratefully. He then faced the daunting task of finding a place for the cat to rest. His bed was out of the question, of course, and the armchair was too high for the injured animal to climb. He considered the floor, but the thought of the cat lying on the cold, hard surface made him wince. In the end, he opted for a cardboard box lined with an old towel, which he placed in a corner of the living room. The cat, exhausted and in pain, curled up in the makeshift bed and promptly fell asleep. Harold watched it, a strange mix of emotions swirling within him. He felt a sense of responsibility, a duty to care for this vulnerable creature. But he also felt overwhelmed, unsure of what to do, how to navigate this unexpected turn of events. He spent the rest of the day fussing over the cat, trying to make it comfortable. He went out and bought some cat food, a litter box, and a few toys, feeling strangely out of place in the pet store aisle. He cleaned and disinfected the small scratch on the cat's nose, marveling at its resilience and gentle nature. As evening approached, Harold settled into his armchair, a book in hand, but his mind was far from the printed page. He kept glancing at the cat, watching its chest rise and fall with each breath, listening to its soft purring. He felt a strange sense of connection to this creature, a bond he had never experienced before. The cat, sensing his presence, opened its eyes and looked at him, its gaze steady and unwavering. Harold felt a warmth spread through his chest, a feeling of affection that surprised him. He reached out and gently stroked the cat's head, feeling the soft fur beneath his fingers. The cat leaned into his touch, purring louder. In that moment, Harold knew that his life had changed irrevocably. This small, injured creature had somehow found its way into his heart, filling a void he hadn't even realized existed. He was no longer just Harold Peterson, the man of routine and solitude. He was now a caregiver, a protector, a companion to this vulnerable creature that had entered his life so unexpectedly. The next morning, Harold awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. His first order of business was to find a veterinarian. He consulted the yellow pages, his fingers tracing down the list of unfamiliar names. He finally settled on Dr. Emily Carter, whose clinic was conveniently located just a few blocks away. He carefully placed the cat in a cardboard box lined with a soft blanket, wincing as the creature let out a small meow of protest. He hailed a taxi, a rare extravagance for him, and instructed the driver to proceed with caution. Dr. Carter's clinic was a small, cozy space, filled with the sounds of chirping birds and soft music. The waiting room was crowded with pet owners, their anxious faces mirroring Harold's own concerns. He sat patiently, his hands clasped tightly in his lap, the cardboard box resting on his knees. When his turn came, he followed the nurse into a brightly lit examination room. Dr. Carter, a young woman with a warm smile and gentle eyes, greeted him with a reassuring nod. She carefully examined the cat, her touch expert and gentle. "Well, Mr. Peterson," she said, "it appears your little friend has a fractured femur." Harold's heart sank. He had hoped it was just a sprain, something that would heal with time and rest. A fracture sounded much more serious. Dr. Carter explained the treatment options, outlining the pros and cons of each. She recommended surgery, followed by a period of rest and rehabilitation. Harold listened attentively, his mind reeling from the technical terms and the potential costs. "I understand this is a lot to take in," Dr. Carter said, sensing his apprehension. "But I assure you, with proper care, your cat has a very good chance of making a full recovery." Harold nodded, his mind made up. He couldn't abandon the cat now, not when it needed him the most. He agreed to the surgery, signing the consent forms with a trembling hand. He left the clinic feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. The surgery was scheduled for the following week, and in the meantime, he was to keep the cat confined and comfortable. He also had to prepare himself for the financial burden, a significant expense for a man living on a fixed income. Back at the apartment, Harold settled the cat in its makeshift bed. He watched it sleep, its breathing shallow and even. He felt a surge of protectiveness, a fierce determination to see this creature through its ordeal. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to face the challenges ahead. This cat, this unexpected guest, had become his responsibility, his purpose, and he wouldn't let it down. The days leading up to the surgery were a blur of activity for Harold. He diligently followed Dr. Carter's instructions, administering medication, keeping the cat confined to its box, and providing a constant supply of fresh water and food. He even ventured back to the pet store, purchasing a soft bed and a variety of toys, hoping to provide some comfort and distraction for his injured companion. The cat, which he had tentatively named Rusty, seemed to appreciate his efforts. It would purr contentedly as Harold stroked its head, its green eyes gazing up at him with a trust that warmed his heart. Despite the pain and confinement, Rusty's spirit remained unbroken. It would play with the toys Harold brought, batting at dangling feathers and chasing after crinkle balls, its energy and resilience surprising him. Harold found himself increasingly drawn to Rusty's quiet companionship. He would spend hours sitting beside the box, talking to the cat, sharing stories of his day, his thoughts, his memories. Rusty would listen patiently, its head tilted, its eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made Harold feel truly seen, perhaps for the first time in his life. The day of the surgery arrived, and Harold's anxiety peaked. He carefully transported Rusty to the clinic, his heart pounding with worry. He paced nervously in the waiting room, his mind filled with worst-case scenarios. When Dr. Carter finally emerged, her face etched with a tired but reassuring smile, Harold felt a wave of relief wash over him. "The surgery went well, Mr. Peterson," she said. "Rusty is a tough little guy. He's recovering now, and with proper care, he should be back to his old self in no time." Harold thanked her profusely, his voice choked with emotion. He was given detailed instructions on post-operative care, including medication schedules, physical therapy exercises, and strict limitations on activity. He listened attentively, determined to do everything in his power to ensure Rusty's full recovery. The following weeks were a testament to Harold's newfound dedication. He meticulously followed Dr. Carter's instructions, administering medication with clockwork precision, gently massaging Rusty's leg to promote circulation and encouraging him to take short, supervised walks around the apartment. He even constructed a makeshift ramp to help Rusty navigate the small step leading to his bed, ensuring the cat could join him for his afternoon naps. Slowly but surely, Rusty began to heal. The limp became less pronounced, the pain subsided, and the spark returned to his eyes. He would chase after his toys with renewed vigor, explore the apartment with a sense of adventure, and curl up on Harold's lap, purring contentedly as Harold stroked his soft fur. Harold, in turn, found himself transformed by this experience. The rigid routine that had defined his life for so long gave way to a more flexible, spontaneous rhythm. He took pleasure in caring for Rusty, in witnessing his progress, in sharing his life with this small, furry companion. He felt a sense of purpose, a connection to something beyond himself that he had never known before. Rusty, the injured cat he had found in the park, had not only found a home with Harold, but had also opened his heart to a world of love and companionship he had long since forgotten. As Rusty regained his strength and vitality, Harold found himself increasingly curious about the cat's past. How had he ended up abandoned and injured in the park? Did he have a family, a home, a name before Rusty? The questions lingered in Harold's mind, a nagging reminder of the unknown chapters in Rusty's life. Driven by a desire to learn more, Harold embarked on a quest to uncover Rusty's history. He started by posting found cat flyers in the neighborhood, describing Rusty's distinctive ginger fur and friendly demeanor. He visited local animal shelters, hoping to find a record of a missing cat matching Rusty's description. He even created a profile for Rusty on a lost and found pet website, complete with photos and a heartwarming story of their encounter. Days turned into weeks, and despite Harold's efforts, no one came forward to claim Rusty. The flyers remained untouched, the shelters had no records, and the online profile garnered only a few sympathetic clicks. Harold began to wonder if Rusty had indeed been abandoned, left to fend for himself in the harsh realities of the streets. One evening, as Harold sat by the window, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple, a thought struck him. He remembered the small, faded collar Rusty had been wearing when he found him, the one he had removed to prevent it from snagging on his injured leg. He had tossed it aside, deeming it unimportant at the time, but now it seemed like a potential clue, a link to Rusty's past. He rummaged through the drawer where he had stored the collar, his heart pounding with anticipation. He held it up to the light, examining it closely. It was a simple, worn leather collar, the buckle tarnished with age. And there, etched on the small metal tag, was a name, Oliver. Harold felt a surge of excitement. Oliver, that was Rusty's real name. A name that held memories, associations, a life before Harold. He repeated the name aloud, savoring the way it rolled off his tongue. Oliver, he whispered. Oliver. The discovery of Oliver's true name ignited a renewed determination in Harold. He felt a responsibility to reunite Oliver with his family, to restore him to his rightful place. He imagined a family missing their beloved pet, searching for him, grieving his absence. He couldn't bear the thought of them not knowing Oliver's fate. He redoubled his efforts, updating the flyers with Oliver's name, contacting more shelters, expanding his online search. He felt a sense of urgency, a need to bring closure to this chapter in Oliver's life, to ensure he was not forgotten, not lost. As he continued his search, Harold couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. He had grown so accustomed to Oliver's presence, his companionship, his unconditional love. The thought of parting with him, of returning him to a life unknown, filled him with a sense of loss. But he knew it was the right thing to do for Oliver, for the family who surely missed him. He would find them, he vowed, and he would reunite them with their beloved Oliver. Weeks turned into months, and despite Harold's tireless efforts, the search for Oliver's family yielded no results. The flyers he had meticulously posted around the neighborhood faded and curled under the relentless sun and rain. The online posts he had shared on various pet forums and social media groups remained unanswered, buried under a deluge of new posts and updates. The hope that had initially fueled his search began to dwindle, replaced by a gnawing sense of doubt. One evening, as Harold sat in his armchair, watching Oliver chase a feather toy across the living room floor, a troubling thought crossed his mind. What if Oliver hadn't been lost? What if he had been deliberately abandoned, discarded like an unwanted toy? The thought sent a shiver down his spine, a cold wave of unease washing over him. He tried to dismiss the idea, clinging to the belief that Oliver had simply wandered off, that his family was desperately searching for him. But the nagging doubt persisted, fueled by the lack of response to his inquiries and the lingering memory of Oliver's injured state when he had found him. Harold recalled the day he had brought Oliver to Dr. Carter's clinic. He remembered the veterinarian's gentle probing, her questions about Oliver's history, her subtle observations about his condition. He had been so preoccupied with Oliver's well-being at the time that he hadn't paid much attention to her remarks. But now, her words echoed in his mind, carrying a new weight, a new meaning. "He's a bit underweight," Dr. Carter had said, her brow furrowed in concern. "And his fur is matted in places, as if he hasn't been groomed in a while." She had paused, her gaze lingering on Oliver's injured leg. "It's an unusual fracture," she had murmured. "The kind you might see in a cat that's been hit by a car or perhaps kicked." Harold had dismissed her observations at the time, attributing Oliver's condition to his time spent fending for himself on the streets. But now, the possibility of deliberate neglect, even abuse, cast a dark shadow over his perception of Oliver's past. The thought that Oliver might have been intentionally harmed, abandoned by the very people who were supposed to care for him, filled Harold with a mixture of anger and sadness. He looked at Oliver, now curled up asleep on his lap, his breathing soft and even. He gently stroked the cat's fur, feeling the warmth of his body against his palm. He couldn't imagine anyone hurting this gentle, loving creature. Yet the possibility remained, a haunting reminder of the cruelty that existed in the world. Harold felt a surge of protectiveness towards Oliver, a fierce determination to shield him from any further harm. He vowed to continue his search for Oliver's family, but with a renewed sense of purpose. He would find them, not just to reunite them with their lost pet, but to ensure that Oliver would never again be subjected to neglect or abuse. He would be Oliver's protector, his advocate, his voice in a world that had failed him. The realization that Oliver might have been intentionally abandoned weighed heavily on Harold's mind. He found himself scrutinizing every passerby, every car that slowed down near his building, searching for any sign, any clue that might lead him to Oliver's past. But the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, and still there was no word, no indication that anyone was looking for Oliver. The lack of response to his search efforts gradually chipped away at Harold's hope. He began to accept the possibility that Oliver's past would remain a mystery, a closed chapter in the cat's life. The thought was both liberating and heartbreaking. Liberating because it freed him from the burden of finding Oliver's family, the constant worry that he was keeping Oliver from his rightful home. Heartbreaking because it meant that Oliver's past, his history, his identity before Harold, would forever remain shrouded in uncertainty. But with acceptance came a sense of peace, a quiet understanding that Oliver's past, however painful or uncertain, did not define him. What mattered was the present, the bond they shared, the love and companionship they had found in each other. Oliver was his cat now, his responsibility, his family, and he would cherish him, protect him, and love him unconditionally, regardless of his past. With this newfound clarity, Harold's focus shifted from searching for Oliver's past to creating a future for them, a future filled with love, comfort, and security. He lavished Oliver with attention, showering him with affection, and providing him with the best care he could afford. He bought him new toys, a scratching post, a cozy cat tree, transforming his once austere apartment into a feline paradise. Oliver, in turn, thrived under Harold's care. He blossomed into a confident, playful cat, his ginger fur gleaming, his green eyes sparkling with mischief. He followed Harold around the apartment, a constant furry shadow, always seeking his attention, his touch, his presence. He would curl up on Harold's lap while he read, purring contentedly, his rhythmic breathing a soothing balm to Harold's soul. Their days fell into a comfortable routine, a gentle rhythm that revolved around their shared needs and affections. Harold's mornings were no longer filled with the solitary ritual of reading the newspaper and eating oatmeal. Instead, he woke to the gentle nudge of Oliver's head against his cheek, the soft purring a welcome invitation to start the day. They would share breakfast, Harold with his toast and tea, Oliver with his gourmet cat food, their morning ritual a testament to their companionship. Harold's daily walks in the park took on a new meaning. No longer a solitary exercise in routine, they became an adventure for both him and Oliver. Harold would carry Oliver in a specially designed cat carrier, allowing him to experience the sights and sounds of the park, the rustling leaves, the chirping birds, the playful squirrels. Oliver would watch with wide-eyed curiosity, his tail twitching with excitement, his presence transforming Harold's solitary walks into shared experiences. As the seasons changed, so did their bond, deepening with each passing day. Harold found himself opening up to Oliver, sharing his thoughts, his fears, his hopes, his dreams. He would talk to Oliver about his late wife, his loneliness, his regrets, his joys. Oliver would listen patiently, his green eyes fixed on Harold's face, his presence a comforting anchor in the sea of Harold's emotions. Harold had never been one for expressing his feelings, his life a testament to stoicism and emotional restraint. But with Oliver, he found a safe haven, a non-judgmental listener, a furry confidant. He would tell Oliver about his childhood, his dreams of becoming an artist, his love for classical music, his fear of growing old alone. And in Oliver's unwavering presence, in his unconditional love, Harold found solace, acceptance, and a renewed sense of purpose. The bond between Harold and Oliver deepened with each passing day, their lives intertwined in a tapestry of shared routines and quiet companionship. Harold, once a solitary man content in his predictable world, found himself embracing new experiences, venturing beyond his comfort zone, all thanks to the ginger cat who had stumbled into his life. One sunny afternoon, as Harold and Oliver were enjoying their daily stroll in the park, they encountered a group of children gathered around a makeshift lemonade stand. The children, their faces beaming with entrepreneurial enthusiasm, eagerly offered Harold a cup of their refreshing concoction. Harold, usually averse to social interactions, surprised himself by accepting their offer, engaging in a lighthearted conversation with the young entrepreneurs. As Harold sipped his lemonade, he noticed a young girl, her eyes wide with curiosity, gazing intently at Oliver. "He's so cute," she exclaimed, her voice filled with admiration. "Can I pet him?" Harold, initially hesitant, nodded his consent, watching as the girl gently stroked Oliver's fur, her touch gentle and respectful. Oliver, in turn, purred contentedly, enjoying the attention. The girl's mother, a friendly woman with a warm smile, approached Harold, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "It seems your cat has quite the fan club," she remarked, gesturing towards the other children who had gathered around, eager to meet Oliver. Harold, surprised by the attention, found himself engaging in a conversation with the woman, sharing the story of how he had found Oliver, his initial reluctance to take him in, and the unexpected bond they had formed. The woman listened attentively, her smile widening as Harold recounted his experiences. "It's amazing how animals can change our lives, isn't it?" she remarked, her voice filled with understanding. "They open our hearts, teach us compassion, and remind us of the simple joys in life." Harold nodded in agreement, realizing the truth in her words. Oliver had not only brought joy and companionship into his life, but had also opened him up to new connections, new friendships, new possibilities. He had become more approachable, more sociable, more engaged with the world around him. The encounter with the woman and her children sparked a change in Harold's outlook. He began to notice the people around him, the familiar faces he had often overlooked in his solitary routine. He started exchanging greetings with his neighbors, engaging in brief conversations with the cashier at the grocery store, even striking up a friendship with the elderly gentleman who frequented the same park bench every afternoon. These small interactions, once foreign and uncomfortable, became a source of joy and connection for Harold. He discovered a sense of community, a shared humanity, that he had long since forgotten. He realized that he was not alone in his journey, that there were others who shared his experiences, his challenges, his triumphs. Oliver, his furry companion, had not only brought love and companionship into his life, but had also opened his heart to the world, reminding him of the beauty of human connection, the power of shared experiences, and the importance of embracing life's unexpected turns. Time, once a relentless force that marched forward with unwavering certainty, seemed to soften its pace in the presence of Harold and Oliver. The years that followed their meeting in the park flowed gently, like a tranquil river meandering through a peaceful landscape. Each day brought new joys, new discoveries, new expressions of their enduring bond. Harold, no longer the rigid man of routine, embraced the spontaneity that Oliver brought into his life. They explored new corners of the park, ventured into different neighborhoods, even embarked on a memorable road trip to the coast, where Oliver, initially hesitant, discovered the joy of chasing seagulls along the sandy shore. Their apartment, once a sanctuary of order and predictability, transformed into a cozy haven reflecting their shared life. Cat toys lay scattered across the floor, a testament to Oliver's playful spirit. A scratching post stood proudly in the corner, its surface bearing the marks of Oliver's enthusiastic claws. And on Harold's favorite armchair, a soft blanket lay permanently draped, a designated spot for Oliver to curl up and purr contentedly. As Harold entered his twilight years, Oliver remained his steadfast companion, his furry confidant, his source of unwavering love. Their roles gradually reversed, with Oliver, now in his prime, watching over Harold, his presence a comforting reassurance against the encroaching frailty of age. Harold's walks became shorter, his pace slower, his steps less steady. Oliver, sensing his human companion's limitations, adjusted his own pace, staying close by Harold's side, his presence a silent offering of support. They would sit together on their favorite park bench, Harold basking in the warmth of the sun, Oliver curled up on his lap, their shared silence a symphony of understanding. Harold's once sharp mind began to cloud with age, his memories fading like old photographs. Oliver, however, remained a constant, his presence anchoring Harold to the present, his unconditional love a beacon in the fog of forgetfulness. Harold would often forget where he had placed his keys, his glasses, his book, but he never forgot Oliver, his furry companion, his constant reminder of love and loyalty. One evening, as Harold sat in his armchair, his gaze lost in the flickering flames of the fireplace, a wave of sadness washed over him. He knew his time was drawing near, his journey nearing its end. He looked at Oliver, curled up asleep on the footstool, his breathing soft and even. A tear rolled down Harold's cheek, a tear of gratitude, of love, of acceptance. He gently stroked Oliver's fur, feeling the warmth of his body beneath his trembling hand. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Thank you for everything." Oliver, as if sensing his human companion's sadness, stirred from his sleep, his green eyes gazing up at Harold with unwavering love. He stretched, yawned, and then, with a graceful leap, settled onto Harold's lap, purring softly. Harold closed his eyes, a smile gracing his lips. He felt a sense of peace, a quiet contentment, knowing that he had lived a full life, a life enriched by the love and companionship of a ginger cat named Oliver. He had found love in the most unexpected place, a love that had transformed his life, opened his heart, and guided him through his twilight years. As the fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the walls, Harold and Oliver sat together, their bond unbreakable, their love eternal. They were two souls, intertwined by fate. Their journey a testament to the enduring power of connection, the transformative magic of love, and the profound impact that a simple act of kindness can have on a life.